And the one thing that's powerful about the voice is if you lob that ball over and they send it firing back and you just kind of pick up another ball and then lob it over, next thing you know, eventually they'll get the message like, okay, we're calm. We're just lobbing the ball here. Let's keep it calm. And the voice is a very powerful medium in that way.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And on today's podcast, we reveal how the voice has the power to command our health and longevity. If you're new to this podcast, welcome in. This is a podcast where we're bringing thought leaders from all over the world on health, wellness, and longevity. And for those of you who are returning, welcome back. Thank you for being on this journey to get into your Thrive State. If you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State, Your Blueprint for Optimal Health, Longevity, and Peak Performance. It's really all about the tools, techniques, and habits on how we create this energetic field, this life force in our body that actually activates the biology of human performance and longevity. And for those of you who want to go faster in your Thrive State journey, go to kienvu.com/accelerator to access the video course that I use to get my clients into the Thrive State. You join a community of thrivers, and it's really a position to take you to the next level of health, wealth, and success. Now, today, I have a very special guest. He's actually a vocal coach. In fact, my vocal coach. In my book, Thrive State, I talk about the energetics that we create from our physical habits, the feelings we feel, the thoughts we think, the community that we're in, and also the people we serve creates this energetic field in our body. And that has a direct effect on how our DNA is being expressed. Now, when I was studying with this vocal coach, we really learned about the power of intention, that through intention, we could actually sync our emotions, our body, and our voice to command a space. And when we have that intention and able to command a space, we not only come into alignment with how we speak, but we can resonate what we have to say to other people as well. So today, we really talk about the power of the voice, that through the voice, we have the power to command a space. And it's not only to an audience of the people that are listening, but it's also to the audience of every single cell of our body. When we can control our intention, how we choose to show up in the world, how we speak, the people around us aren't also listening, but our cells, every single DNA is listening to that energetic as well. So we can understand that the power of our voice does not only affect our external environment, but our internal one as well. So as we master the power of our voice, we also are able to master performance and longevity. This is a wild talk from my vocal coach, Marshall Davis Jones. Now, Marshall Davis Jones is actually the founder of MindBodySpeak, a leading authority in vocal communication for high-stakes discussion. Marshall's techniques have won negotiations, de-escalated conflicts, and acquired business relationships across multiple industries. He's worked with many renowned speakers, including myself, industry leaders, and various organizations from youth development to law enforcement. He's actually sitting on several advisory boards for tech companies as an expert on human vocal performance and effective presence. Besides writing and speaking globally, he has played a narrative consultant role for 2 documentaries and contributes to industry strategies via think tanks. He was actually awarded recognition as one of the top 100 most influential people of African descent via the United Nations. He's also had poems flown by NASA into space. This is how powerful this guy is. You're going to really enjoy this conversation with one of my coaches, Marshall Davis Jones.
is going on. I was just telling the people who are live right now, what an awesome coach you've been in my own life. And so,
man,
thank you, brother.
All, thank you. I appreciate you, man. And it's been a good time. One thing about, like working with people, and it's when they have their own enthusiasm and fire and passion, like Dr. Veek is after it. I don't care what anybody says, that man is on it. He's like, how do we flip this here? What about this? And it's always exciting because then it's, when I show up, I'm showing up as somebody that wants to show up for themselves. So thank you.
You got it, brother. Well, I usually start off the show with something called the 5 to Thrive. It's a game show style situation where the answer is going to be less than 15 seconds long. You win this thing. The next time we meet, dinner is on me. Are you ready to play the 5 to Thrive, brother? Okay, sounds good. It's the holiday season, and across your entire life spectrum, what has been the one most significant gift that you've gotten over the holidays?
Time. Taking when the season says everyone can stop working and like everyone's like, I'm leaving for the end of the year, and then it just frees up my mental time space. So time.
All right, awesome. Question number 2: what one book has been one of the most transformative things that you have ever read?
So I hear this. We're gonna have to put the Thrive State in there, right? You got to put it up. You know what I'm saying, right? Let's just talk about it.
Excluding that one.
The Science of Acting by Sam Kogan. This guy wanted to break down a scientific perspective of what makes a good actor a good actor. And I thought it was a book about theater. I was a poet. I was like, I'm gonna read this acting book and I'm gonna get good. But he talked about how we develop our things, he called them mind erosions, and how those thought patterns are developed. And you have, in order to think like a king, you have to have the thought patterns of a king. Or if you have to act like anything. And he just talked about how not only does this apply to performance, but also to the people we interact with and their thought pattern. So yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have you pause right there, because a lot of that stuff, the energetics we put ourselves in and how it shows up in our voice, is what I've learned from you, and we're gonna tap into that more in a second. All right, question number 3 is: if you were stranded on a desert island, other than myself, what 3 people would you bring, dead or alive?
Fictional or non-fictional? Boom. All right.
Correct.
Stranded on an island. Indiana Jones. Stranded on an island. Woo. MacGyver. Yeah, MacGyver.
Definitely want that guy.
Jones. Oh man, one more. Come on. Stranded on an island.
Bring it out.
Yeah, what's it? Indiana Jones, MacGyver, and yo, I'm having a hard time with a third person because they need to be good. Indiana Jones, MacGyver.
All right, I have to say, your 15 seconds are up, brother. You can throw one out there if something comes in your mind a little bit later. Question number 4 is, what poem have you written is most meaningful in your life right now?
There's a poem I wrote called Within These Walls, and it was a poem dedicated to the Musical Instrument Museum. And it was just about the power of music, but the power of vibration, and in all of its forms. And that poem, I wrote it in the backyard, Scottsdale, Arizona, the night before I had to perform it, all in my head. I was under the stars and just kind of recounting. And that poem has reverberated throughout time, so much so that it's going to be in Ray Romano's new movie that's coming out next year. So, fun times.
Ooh, all right. Well, looking forward to listening to that one. And the last question I have for you is, what one thing are you most looking forward to in 2023?
2023, it's like there's a big open space where usually you go into the new year, you're like, all right, boom. there's so many new things that are opening and emerging from 2022 that have entered into my life that 2023 is going to be full of surprises and full of magnificent unknowns while I just continue to grow with the work that I've been doing.
All right. Well, congratulations. We're looking forward to that. Looking forward to what you're producing in 2023. And so, look, I already prefaced everybody by letting you know you were my vocal coach, and that I've learned so much in terms of how to show up in the world and the power of our voice. But before we tap into that, you know, you were a spoken word artist, you know, all across the world. People have heard your art form. As a child, how did you know that you had this gift, and how did you know that you wanted to share this gift with the world?
So I didn't start speaking until I was 3, which to some people who represents like neurological delays, you know, it's a long time. But once I started speaking, I remember I was around 5 years old when I was fascinated with the idea that letters come together to make words. And it was like, I started to play with letters the way I would play with Legos. And so, you know, it's like, well, we put these letters together. Is this a word? Is this a word? Is this a word? And I think I've just always been fascinated by the construction of ideas and concepts. And poetry, because I don't really consider myself like the poet. I don't know, like the artist that's inspired by like the wind hit me and then I wrote this poem. I think more like an engineer. And so it just gave me this opportunity to learn that you can engineer words together in a way that create things. And that's always fascinated me. And through high school, I used to use rap to do my English homework, stuff like that, you know, anything that was constructing words to deliver something. So, yeah.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. And you've got an illustrious career in spoken word. I'm sure you've got interviewed by that before, but I really want to kind of tap into your coaching method and MindBodySpeak. You know, this is one of the pre-work you had me do is read the following phrase. My voice has the power to calm my emotions, control an environment, and command a space. If my voice is weak, unsure, or uncertain, I will not have this ability. If my voice is under my control, then this ability is mine to use as I see fit. And man, the 6 weeks we spent together really mastering this has been transformational in my life, because what happens is now I bring consciousness and intention to every single moment. Right. Tell me how you went from a spoken word artist to really mastering sort of like the energetics of how we show up and our voice.
I was, it was April 2011. A friend of mine gets on stage. I hadn't seen him in a while. He gets on. It's at the New Eureka Poets Cafe at the Grand Slam Finals, which is basically like, you know, your hometown World Series of poetry. And he gets on, he has his voice, and he's like, tell them to the blood leeching demons and all this other good stuff. So the first thing I thought was like, what's going on in your life that there's blood leeching demons involved? Like, that's like, let's talk, bro. You all right? Second thing was, I said, why do you sound like Shakespeare got in your mouth? And he goes, I'm in acting school, and the very first thing that they teach and train is voice, because the voice is life. And that was a German. The voice is life. I didn't have $15,000 to go to the Academy of Dramatic Arts just to learn voices. That's all I would have cared about. But I started reading Speak with Distinction, which is like, so I had this phase when I was like, hi, my name is Marshall. I was very affected in trying to sound like a Shakespearean performer. And along the way, it became clear, reading different books about how the psyche is formed and how the way that we use our voice is a direct effect of, you know, how we feel, what we are safe, how safe we feel to externalize our thoughts. And so much information from many different sources, like, finding out that talking increases blood pressure. Just this conversation right now, right? If you were to put a blood pressure, it would be hypertension. And we're not yelling, we're not arguing, we're not fighting. The idea that the voice, in a tenth of a second makes an impression. That's a very small window of influence to start, getting people going. And it's like, so here are these words, right? Back to the beginning. So we started out with words. And then that became, well, what's the vehicle that those words leave? And that's the voice. That's the body. And so in being able to master the vocalization that we have with our words, it takes those words that are lifeless and gives them life, and gives them power. And that fascinates me to this day.
This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by the Thrive State Accelerator. The Thrive State Accelerator is actually a home course that I developed using the exact same techniques I work with my celebrity clients, CEOs, and executives on how to get them to the Thrive State. The Thrive State Accelerator teaches you how to master your 7 bioenergetic elements. That's sleep, nutrition, movement, stress and emotional mastery, relationships, our thoughts and mindset, as well as purpose. In this Thrive State Accelerator, you're also going to get a bonus module on optimization. That's how I talk about supplementation, peptides, all the optimization techniques I use with my clients to get them to the Thrive State. Now, for some of you who are just joining us for the first time, you guys might be wondering, what is the Thrive State? Well, the Thrive State is actually the energy, the epigenetic environment we give to ourselves, telling our DNA how to act and how to respond. And if we want optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, if we can master these 7 bioenergetic elements, our ability to have those 3 things that we just said, optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, is at its greatest. And it also prevents you from getting chronic symptoms like brain fog, being overweight, feeling sluggish, acne, pain, all these chronic symptoms, as well as preventing you from getting chronic disease. So getting to that Thrive State is really getting to that state to master being that very best version of yourself, so you could show up for you, for your family, for your business, everything that's important to you. So go ahead, check it out right now at kienvu.com/accelerator and use coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. Now back to the podcast.
That is amazing. What you really taught me was just how unconscious I was sometimes in my communication. And not just in my communication, but unconscious, of life. That sometimes the day-to-day activities of life, emails, taking care of patients, interacting with others, was all a reaction that I had from other people. And I realized that in that reactionary phase where I'm not just conscious about that particular moment, my voice was weak. So let me ask you, what do you think, and what percentage of people do you think are just running around, maybe not awake or not very conscious to the intent and to the person that they bring to each moment?
Vocalization is like, I think that when it comes to people using their voices, most of us are unaware. I mean, it's not a popular topic of like, how is my voice affecting my life? No one's really Googling that. The people who care about their voices most of the time are singers, actors, and public speakers, insofar as the goal, right? So I want to sing a song well, I want to act well, or I want to do a great speech solely. So with being that that's not everybody's not doing that. Like, you're a speaker, right? Like, you decided like, hey, I want to become a speaker. And so, like, well, I have to have a speaking voice. So that's a bit more important. But how many people do you know are public speakers? How many people do you know that want to be actors? And how many people do you know that are singers? So you start to reduce that and you leave everyone else. Maybe someone who works at a customer service call center, right? They might care about how they sound. And they have to, because we're monitoring this call for quality control purposes, right? But most of us are just talking, saying words. And then we're like, we get surprised when someone says, why did you talk to me like that? Why did you say it like that? We also get surprised that people can actually hear where we're coming from. Like, it's very challenging. Like, you might have, like, you know, someone say something to you and it's a very short tone and they're being very curt. You know, why are you talking to me like that? You're like what? We hear that stuff. The voice, your voice is always going to betray what you're feeling, really feeling. And so you want to be mindful of that.
Yeah. Well, you've taught me some really great techniques, box breathing and a yawn stretch. And you made the analogy of how basically when you're in a race car, you know, during a NASCAR race, cars go around, but they always take a pit stop. People aren't really taking that pit stop.
No, they aren't. You know, and for everyone that's listening here, it's like, if you have a dog at home or a cat, I've never seen one, right? You might notice they do a little yoga pose, you know, a few times a day. And they may not go to the gym like we do, but if they got to get up and go, they're gone. And part of that is the power in that, you know, the yawn stretch. Pandiculation is a fancy term, but it does so many really cool things as it resets the body, especially when we sit down as much as we do. It's like a jumper cable. And then box breathing, which is a military-based breathing technique that soldiers use to fall asleep on a battlefield. That's what they use it for. They use it so that, you know, guns are going, and they're like, I can take a nap, right? And so we have to reset our system. There's a maintenance, and I know that's a lot of what you talk about in Thrive State. It's like, you know, you want to make sure that you're taking care of your body over time. You're trying to live 100 years. You can't just wait until the transmission, the muffler blows out, and you're like, oh, you're in the hospital. Like, no, you have to have that consistent maintenance. You know, there's inside of engines and stuff, there's cooling, right? So that when your car is going, your engine doesn't overheat, and we have to respect that part of our own biology.
That's amazing. You know, implementing these little breaks throughout the day really allows you to just come back to yourself. You know, how many of us wake up in the morning, first thing we go to is our phone, and already our brain is pulled into something away from ourselves. And being able to box breathe, have these techniques, these reset techniques, just gives you a second to say,
that's right.
Who am I right now? How do I want to show up right now? And you almost kind of command an energetic within you, and then it can come out in your voice. And it's been amazing because not only has this up-leveled my keynote speaking, but my ability to show up for my partner. There are times where, she would be in a reactive state, and certainly if I was in a reactive state, we'd just be going at it. But if I could understand who I am and how I want to show up in that place, if my energetic is calm and and one that is holding space for a conversation,
absolutely,
I show up differently.
It is powerful because we sonically we're playing tennis when we talk, right? And I don't know if you've ever seen like a really intense tennis match where there's people, versus two people who are just practicing, just like knocking the ball over the net there. Once you're arguing, especially, you're like, pow, 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 pow. And both people are reacting off of each other. And the one thing that's powerful about the voice is if you lob that ball over and they send it firing back and you just kind of pick up another ball and then lob it over, next thing you know, eventually they'll get the message like, okay, we're calm. We're just lobbing the ball here. Let's keep it calm. And the voice is a very powerful mediator in that way. Yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah, beautiful. Really quick question. I'm very curious about this. I watched videos of you 8-10 years ago, and the tone of your voice is probably a little softer, higher pitch. We go on your Instagram profile now, and it's much deeper and resonant. So what has been sort of this transition or the transformation, or is there an intentional thought to show up and speak a little bit differently?
When I first started doing poetry, like I was just a firecracker of like, I have things that are on my mind and I want to say them and they're very important. Everyone needs to listen to me because I'm smart and I'm right and I figured this out and I write some books and and all of that was coming out of my tone, which was also a part of just my life in general. Like I had I got ideas, I got things, I'm thinking stuff, I got kicked out of one class because I kept correcting my teacher. Like that those kinds of things. And no one likes a smart ass, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I sounded like one. But also, too, I had an overcharged panic system. My voice was the voice of someone who did not believe that people would actually listen. That was the issue. It's like, when you're, you know, no one's going to listen to me, so I'm going to say everything I have to say. And the comfort of getting into the body and feeling comfortable in my own skin and not being so alarmed.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, you know, public speaking is a very scary thing. You know, I know that you know this very well. You get on stage, you got a bunch of eyes, and all those people, they're demanding of you to entertain them, and you better do it now, and it better be good, or else we're gonna say mean things about you. We're gonna Instagram about how horrible it was. I mean, there's so many downsides to getting up in front of a bunch of people today. Like, it used to be tomatoes,
right?
Now it's rotten tomatoes. You know what I'm saying? And that stays for life. You know, they're always gonna have that. So, you know, it's very challenging, you know, to in today's world to verbally communicate safely. You know, everyone's the wrong sentence away from getting canceled or something. You know, so we have to be calm and you know, comfortable in one's own skin. And it's not just a metaphor. That sounds nice. It's like, how do you feel in your body when you speak to people?
Yes. So I really want to close with, you know, for those people who are just really hearing for the first time, just how powerful our voice is, just how powerful we communicate energetically through our voice, and they want to be able to tap in and be a little bit more conscious. What might be some things or exercises that people could start working on to really control the power? And
so I'll give you guys one thing here, and if you want, you can. There's a TEDx called "You Hate Your Voice." Let's talk about it. You can take a look at that link, and there's one exercise that's in there, and it's part of this module called "Good Food." So here's how it works. I want you to think about the most delicious thing you can possibly think about in your mind right now. Just hold that image in your brain. Ah, man. And what happens, there you go. What that's doing is now you're using the imagination, but also recall, and you're putting your body in an appetitive state. And it's like, so when you vocalize, it's like, yeah, you know, that's cool over there. But if you take the same thought and think about the most disgusting thing you could ever think about in your whole life, like, it's like somebody put that on your plate and tried to feed it to you. You see your face is all like squished up, and you're just like, oh my God. And you start talking like that. Automatically, I don't even have to try. I don't have to try to do anything. I don't have to act. I just have to think, oh, this is gross, get it away from me, and my voice will follow. And so if you really want to, like, really quickly change how you're affecting your sound, use the imagination to find things that you like or you don't like. And you can use that to, like, let's say somebody's wearing your favorite color, but you don't necessarily like them, but they're wearing your favorite color. You're like, man, I love blue. Blue is so good. Your brain is now expanding on that. You know, when people buy a red car and all of a sudden every car is red. It's the same concept. Whatever you focus on, your mind starts to expand on it. It's the way the brain works. It's like, oh, here we are. Let's have more and more and more of this. So the one thing I would say is, play around with that. So for the next conversation you have, when you walk up to somebody, you know, think about what you enjoy about their presence, even if it's not their person right now. And lean into that, because the part of the brain that thinks about those things crosses over with the part of the brain that protects us from parasites and stuff. And so if you're looking at somebody like they're a piece of trash, guess what? The body goes, we're not doing that. And you will sound like that. But if you're like, man, let's sweeten the deal. You know what I'm saying? Let's butter it up. You have a totally different aspect. So that would be what I leave you with today.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. I mean, really, the energetics of our emotion shows up, and trust me, your words might not overtly say that, but people could feel that. So be intentional about what you're feeling right now. Marshall Jones, thank you for your time today. Before I ask my last question, where do people find you? How do people, get to you if they want to get coaching or find out more about your courses and things like that?
That's the fastest way to do it. MindBodySpeak. And reach out to me there. I'm on LinkedIn, Marshall Davis Jones. Talk to me, reach out, and be a good time.
Oh, it will be a good time indeed. And the last question for you is, in your entire life, you've got so many nuggets of wisdom. What has been your best medicine?
A good friend of mine, he said to me, you want to feel so still that you could feel a tiny hair right at your abdomen. It tells you that's the way to go. You want to feel a stillness that is that quiet. And when I allow myself to quiet down and feel that sense of stillness and let that guide me, it hasn't led me astray yet.
Powerful, brother. Thank you for your time, brother. Thank you for the coaching, and thank you for being on the Thrive State podcast.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if this podcast is bringing a lot of value to you, if you find that your life is just improving with this podcast, that your life is getting to the next level, please consider supporting it. And here's a few ways you can do so. You can do so by liking this video and commenting on this video, and also sharing this video with your friends and family. Another thing you can do is go to ratethispodcast.com/ThriveState. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review there. It will really, really help this show grow. And this will give me more time so that I could actually give more content to you, just like you got in this episode. And if you haven't already picked up a copy of my book, Thrive State, Your Blueprint for Optimal Health, Longevity, and Peak Performance, you can pick it up now. It became a #1 new release in longevity. Go to thrivestatebook.com. And if you enjoy the book, please consider leaving us a review as well. And the last thing you can do, if you're liking everything here and you want to work more closely with me as well as my team to get you into the Thrive State, go to kienvu.com/accelerator and consider joining the home course, the Thrive State Accelerator. It's really the course that I use. It's the concepts that I use personally when I work with CEOs, celebrities, and my high-profile clients to get them to the Thrive State. Again, the Thrive State Accelerator at kienvu.com/accelerator. And because you're a listener of this podcast, I want you to save 25% by using the coupon code podcast25. I hope we continue to give value to you. And remember always, you are your best medicine.